Now, could the books you are reading to your kids at night subtly teach them racist ideas? Well, that's the theory of one children's literature scholar, and this is what he's arguing this morning. Philip Nell is the author of Was the Cat in the Hat Black? The Hidden Racism of Children's Literature and the Need for Diverse Books. Now, in the book, he argues that The Cat in the Hat was based off of racial stereotypes, and it doesn't end there. Nell also points out other books like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory have some issues in it. He says the Oompa Loompas, the ones right there dancing, he said they were slaves to Willy Wonka, and it presents slavery as happy, fun, enjoyable. Nell argues that even though those books are loved and they remind adults of our childhood, parents should still think critically about them. Never saw it that way. So how should parents handle this?
Yeah, for more, let's go to Crystal Gutierrez, who will dive deeper on this story. Hey, Crystal.
Yeah, hey, guys. Well, sorting out all of this and what to do with this information can be really tough as a parent. Carrington Cunnington is a PCI certified parent coach and a mother of 10-year-old triplets. And so she's joining us now to kind of weigh in on this conversation. So Carrington, help us figure this out. Can we keep the classics or should we just avoid them altogether?
You know, I'm a strong advocate of keeping the classics, but keeping the conversation going too. I read extensively to my children. I think reading is such an important skill, time for bonding, all those types of wonderful things. And there's so much we can learn from historical texts, historical fiction. But you're absolutely right. It's important that we address the way culture has changed and the way our views have changed over time.
Now, it's interesting, this author points out, you know, he raises some good questions, and I do see his point. I can see the perspective he's coming from and the discussion he's setting up for us to have. However, I'm wondering, as a parent myself, I have never noticed, for example, the Oompa Loompas being slaves to Willy Wonka. I had never seen it that way. I don't know if my kids see it that way. So sometimes I wonder, is it beneficial for my kids for me to point out something that they may not even notice?
That's a really good point. I think what we ought to be thinking about in this context is how can we talk about literature in general? How can we talk about the things that we expose our children to in a productive way so that even if we haven't thought of it that way before, maybe in the context of a conversation with our child, we might start thinking about things in a different way. I don't think the point is to start pointing out to them all the evils in the world and the ways that things are insidiously hidden, but to just be open to having conversations that might enlighten us in new ways.
Right. Yeah, I'm all about the conversation, so I totally agree with you on that one. Can you give us some good suggestions on maybe some good questions we could ask our children as we're reading these types of books? What are some good suggestions to some talking points with them?
I think some great questions to start with include, what do you think it would be like to be this character? Can you imagine this type of scenario happening in your everyday world? What if so-and-so walked through our door? How would you interact with them? Helping our children walk into the story themselves so that they can imagine themselves in those surroundings can really give them some insight into how to think of something. And it begins to teach them also how to put themselves in someone else's shoes, which is a great way to teach empathy.
Yeah, I think that's some great advice there, helping them to really have those critical thinking skills for themselves where we're not giving them the information, we're just helping them to see it for themselves. So, Carrington, thanks so much for your insight. We sure do appreciate you joining us this morning.